аккуратно и не распускай руки. Будь вежлив, твои подруги. Если у нас ссора, виноваты подруги. Слушай твои стоны, любимые звуки. Хочу поцеловать тебя, нежные губы. Ай, в сердце бахнули стрелы. Детка, я знаю, я для тебя первый. Я всегда прав, даже когда я лев. Я всегда лев, даже когда я прав. Дай топ-G, мой язык быстрый, как будто ножи. Слушай меня, все идет из души. Если нам тесно, то так и скажи.
Поставим на всю, и соседи не спят. Кто под нами внизу, вы простите меня. А потом о любви говорит до утра. Это юность моя, это юность моя. Звук поставим на всю, и соседи не спят. Кто под нами внизу, вы простите меня. А потом о любви говорит.
Да что это? Здорово, сундук мастер. Все окей. Да прошел сборку. Вчера. А у тебя как дела? Что за кринж? Что за кринж ебаный? Нет, это тоже кринж. Ну и хорошо. Сейчас нормальный звук. Ну-ка, алло. Ну, как видишь. Хрень какая-то играет. Как видишь, разработкой занимаюсь. Хочу, точнее, заняться. Продолжить. Стоп. А что на экране? Угу. Так, ну вот. Только надо сейчас субтитры побольше сделать. Вот так. Да что там за кринж, ебаный? Сейчас. Вот так. Опа. Привет. Токси. Зря поставила. Тут ничего такого интересного. Вообще ничего интересного. Тут какой-то мужик сидит, объясняет мне. А что за фильм? Что за фильм? Посмотрю кое-что. Ага. Да я тебя понял, блядь, давай дальше, на. Мужик. Давай дальше. Сейчас будем работать. Жестко.
Next.js is a JavaScript framework made to create front-end application. Next.js has been built on top
Подожди-ка. А, ладно.
of a bit like Next.js for React. And there's a lot of features that help us to develop faster and that improve our developer experience. So when you go on Nux.com, the official documentation, we
Давай откроем. По приколу.
see now that we are on the version 3 of Nuxt. Because
Sure.
yes, Vue switched recently to the version 3. So Nuxt had to update its latest version. So when we click on Get Started, we arrive on an introduction page. But for us, we are going to go directly on Installation. And we are going to go down.
Это я умею, бля, мужик. Имба вообще. Ладно, пока. Сюда зайду. Сейчас. Блять. Сейчас. Пусть играет. Блять. Да ёбаный рот, почему это? Тяжело как-то. Блять. Блять, сложно. На. Теперь русский надо. Блять. Что за...
And here we see that we have a command npx nuxi init project name. So I'm going to copy paste that, go into my terminal, I'm going to give a name, so it's going to be my next project, and then there we go, my project has been installed. The first thing we can notice.
Мам. Чё? Чё? Чё, блядь? Понял. Не понял. Чё тебе не нравится? То же самое все.
Going to project and
Next. Learn. Ну. Алло. О. Чё тут обновить надо? Что это? Можно я сделаю вот так? Yarn. Все. Что там получается? Package. Ладно.
there we go, my project has been installed. The first thing we can notice when we arrive in this Nux project, and if you already did some Vue.js before, is that it's really light. There's only 6 files at first. So when we are going to type npm install, we're gonna have our node modules. However, we don't have the folders that we have on Vue 3. For instance, on Vue 2 we got the source folder, we can have the public and assets, okay? With Nuxt, it works a bit the same. However, the difference is that we will not have any source folder at first. We will have to create our own folders, page, component, etc, etc. And it's going to work like this, because Nuxt is providing to us a file routing system that works on the organization of our folders. It will automatically create our routes. And another thing that is really
Nice.
npm install. To npm install our project, I'm going to open my
Просто. Красиво, красиво, блять, конечно.
localhost 3000, and there we go, we've got, so our application is now set up. We can use it as it's supposed to work. I need that component. All right, our app has been created, but it's totally empty. The first thing I'm gonna do is to add a bit of configuration, because yes, with Nuxt.js we have a nux.config.typescript or JavaScript file that can help us to provide some configuration. So we have a method called define nuxt.config that receive an object, and in this object we can pass several elements. The topic of this course is not to talk about the configuration. The topic of this course is just to create an app. However, I'm going to do a bit of configuration at first before we start the course in order to follow every step. So the first thing I'm gonna add, it's an alias. This alias will help me actually to catch some elements directly from the source. But you are going to say to me, Guillaume, you talked before about the auto import feature. Auto import is working for pages and component and some other folders, but not necessarily for everything. So we will necessarily need an alias. So this alias will be an @ okay? And here I'm going to say, hey, I need the path of my current project, and I want to be at the root. So I'm going to import resolve from path up there, all right? And here I'm going to resolve a path. So I'm going to start with dear name, and here it's going to be just the source, the root actually of my source. Okay. So now when I'm going to type @ everywhere in my app, it will resolve directly the dear name, so the dear name which is actually the root of my folder, and I will be able to catch anything and to import dynamically every element of my project. Another thing is that I want to add a CSS file because we don't have any style in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a folder directly which will be assets, and in these assets I will add a main.css. If you want to add a CSS, it's okay. Me personally, I'm going to add SCSS. What I need to do now is to install Sass, because Sass is not installed. So I'm going to type npm install Sass, and I'm going to launch again the project. And what I want to do, I want that this main.css file would be actually the root style sheet of my project. So what I can do is to type CSS, and CSS actually it's an array. So I'm going to specify on this nux.config.ts that I want to have one file as a CSS root file. You can have many other because it's an array. So here I'm going to add assets main.scss to check if it's working. I'm going to add a body, and here it's going to be color red, and when I get back
Сейчас.
there we go, we see that I have the color red applied. So it is working, it is applying my SCSS. Finally, for the need of this course, I'm going to install Tailwind CSS. So I go on Tailwind CSS on Get Started, then I click on Framework Guides. There I click on in npm my Tailwind will be a but also for how it's done, our project down, it's telling us to do it, but we already did it. And now let's run again our project and let's see if it's going to work. And when I get back to change, click get bold, and it's file system all view roots, then organize all the nested roots, because there's a system inside Nuxt that helps you to deal with the routing, automatic documentation, and create a route. So I'm going to so I'm going to create events this. We got an error, and if
ах, какие в ней люди были, как торжественно величаво звуки гимна над миром плыли, ах, как были открыты лица, как наполнены светом взгляды, как красива была столица, как величественный парад, проходя триумфальным маршем, безупречным красивым строем, молодежь присягала старшим, закаленным в боях героям. Не деляги и прохиндеи попадали у нас в кумиры, ибо в людях жила идея, жажда быть в авангарде мира.
if we try to app.view page and we
Что же было такого злого в том, что мы понимали твердо, что товарищ не просто слово, и звучит это слово гордо в том, что были одним народом, крепко спаянным общей верой, что достоинство не доходом.
Чё, блядь?
Смиряли мерой в том, что пошлости на потребу не топили в грязи искусства, что мальчишек гнило небо, что у девушек были чувства. Ах, насколько все ныне гаже, уже ниже и даже
We
реже.
have a habit view. It's really easy to understand. We are going to use its route back and
Понял. Принял.
А с потерей поколений, как не выжиться эти рожи, разве место при них надежде? Ах, как все это не похоже на страну, что мы знали прежде, что была молода, крылата, силы множила год за годом, где народ уважал солдата и гордился солдат народом. Ту, где были открыты дали, ту, где были чисты просторы, а какое кино снимали наши лучшие режиссеры, а какие звенели песни, как от них расправлялись плечи, как
on my /ev.
Чё, блядь?
утром с арена встречу эти песни о важном в жизни, о свободе, мечте, полете,
If I get back to you understand, I don't get
о
any.
труде, что всегда в почете, и о девушках, что цветами расцветают под солнцем мая, и о кущах с дома маме, с детства знакомом крае, и о чести, и об отваге, и о верном надежном друге, и о лели над нами флаге с черной свастикой в белом круге.
Any index at the root of pages. However, app.view is supposed to be the root of our single page application, and it needs a first page to start. And this first page has to be index.view inside my pages folder. So I'm going to type template div, and I'm going to say here index page simply. So I got an index.view, which is the first page, so the root URL of my application. Then I got /events that is displayed there. So when I get back and I update, maybe I gotta start again my server for him to understand that I have an index page right now. And there we go, I got my index page display. And if I get to /events, I got my events page. Alright, say that .view, close all of this. Instead, now we do is to view events.
Okay.
Template and I type we access. I can create a lot of file inside. Things will be so even my this here that well parameter access to the root. So I'm going to console log this root, and I'm going to get back, open my console, and what we see is that we got the root as a proxy object. What I can do is to type root dot params, exactly what I would do inside my template, and here there we go, we see that it catch actually the ID of my root. So I get root.params.id, and this method useRoot is available everywhere in the Nuxt application, and you will see when we get more deep into the course, everywhere in the Nuxt application you have a lot of methods like this that are auto-imported everywhere you need them. You earn a lot of time by doing this. This is a good timing to show you another method that is very useful provided by Nuxt. Exactly like Next.js, if you know Next.js, you have the context available. Nuxt also got a context that is available. What you can use actually is the text is equal to that is available everywhere in the application to give us access to the current context. So here I'm going to console log Nuxt.
Ебать.
I'm going to get back, I'm going to update, and look at that. We've got an object which is big and contains a lot of method and data. And if we look a bit closer to it, we see that we got access to what we call a context. This is actually the context of your current application. So here you got a function called useHead, we're going to see that later. We got view app that gives us access to all our view application with the instance, etc., etc. And all of this is of what is useNuxt app. useNuxt app is a built-in composable that provides a way to access shared runtime context of Nuxt, which is available on both client and server side. It helps you to access the Vue instance app, runtime hook, and payload. useNuxt app will be very useful when you will create your own Nuxt application. You may need this context very often. Don't forget about it. Let's finish now to talk about the navigation. If I get back to my app.vue here, let's say that I want to create a header. And here it's going to be a header with a list, okay? Linked link, okay? And Nuxt link, actually, it's a built-in component that helps you to push to the route that you want. So here I want to push to...
Так, значит что? Components. Header. Так, base. Может, по-другому это делать? New. Header. Да. Diff. Yeah. Next link. Так. Не работает. Супер кул, блять, оно не работает. Ага, до сих пор. Так, а почему? Не понял. А вот она, в смысле? Что за рофл? Ладно. Хедер. Ну-ка, если этот хедер вот сюда я его вставлю. Сюда. Header view. Ага. Блять, оно не работает.
home, so I'm going to type slash, and here is going to be home. Okay. Okay. When I click on link, actually some to the pack is to deal preventing actions depend.
Блять. Да блять. Почему не работает, сука? Тут еще, блять, какая-то ошибка ебущая. Ты ебись, блять, от меня. Так, компоненс. Блять. Ну где? Чё не работает? Хедер. Компоненс. Че? Что за пиздец? Ой, бля. Ладно. Nice. Блять, оно сломалось. Так. Блять.
I can swallow a bottle of alcohol in a feel like Godzilla. Better hit the deck like the car dealer. My whole squad's in here walking around the party, a cross between a zombie apocalypse and Bobby the Brain Heenan, which is probably the same reason I wrestle with mania shades in this bitch. I'm posse up. Consider it to cost me a costly mistake if they sleeping on me. The hoes better get insomnia, ADHD, hydroxy cut. Pass the posse. In AA with an AK melee, finna set it like a play date. Better vacate, retreat like a vacate Mayday. This beat is cray cray Ray J H A H A H A. Laughing all the way to the bank. I spray flames. They cannot tame or placate the monster.
You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road trucker, I look like a villain out of a blockbuster. To the fire, a monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V carpet. Fire, to the fire, monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V.
I'm just a product of the cricket onyx. Told him Nick the balls had him just appalled. Did so many things that pissed him off. It's impossible to list them all. And in the midst of all this, I'm in a mental hospital with a crystal ball, trying to see what I still be like this tomorrow. Whisper dog voices whisper. My fist is ball back up against the wall. Pencil drawn. This is just a song to go ballistic on. You just pull a pistol on the guy with a missile launcher. I'm just a Loch Ness, the mythological. Quick to tell a bitch you off like a fifth of vodka. When you twist the top of the bottle, I'm a monster.
You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road trucker, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters. To the fire, spit a monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V carpet. Fire, to the fire, monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V.
If you wanna get it down, raise your hand, cause I'm about to set trip. Vacation plans, I'm going to my indexes. So all you'll ever get is some motherfucking finger. Prostate exam. How can I have all these fans to perspire like a liar's pants? I'm on fire and I got no plans to retire. And I'm still the man you admire. These chicks are spazzing out. I only get more handsome and flyer. I got 'em passing out like what you do when you hand someone flyers. And what goes around comes around just like the blades on the chainsaw. Cause I caught the flag, but my dollar stacked right off the bat like a baseball. Like kidding, bitch, I got the knocks with so much ease that they call me Diddy. Cause I make bands and I call getting cheese a cakewalk. Yeah. Bitch, I'm a player. I'm too motherfucking stingy for share. Won't even lend you an ear, ain't even pretending to care. But I tell a bitch I'm Mary of Shabaria, face on my genital area. The original Richard Ramirez, Christian Rivera. Cause my lyrics never sit well, so they wanna give me the chair. Like a paraplegic and it's scary, call it Harry Carry. Cause every time I'm digging Harry Carry, I'm Mary, a motherfucking dictionary on. I'm swearing up and down, they can spit this shit's hilarious. It's time to put these bitches in the obituary column. We wouldn't see eye to eye with a staring problem. Get the shaft like a staring column. Trigger happy, pack heat, but it's black ink. Evil half of the bad beats. Evil bad beats, take a back seat, take it back to fat beats with a maxi single. Look at my rap sheet. What attracts these people is my gangster bitch, like a patchy with a catchy jiggle. I stack chips, you better got a half-eaten Cheeto. Filling with the venom and eliminate him. Other words, I'm intimate him. I don't wanna hurt him, but I did him in a fit of rage. I'm murdering again. Nobody will evade him. Finna kill him and dump the fucking bodies in it. Obliterating everything that's iterated. Gonna get him and make anybody who want it with the pin and frame. Don't nobody want it, but they're gonna get it anyway. I'm beginning to feel like I'm really ill until the killer be killed. I'm a killer, be the vanilla gorilla. You're bringing the killer within me out of me. You don't wanna be the enemy of the demon who enemy of me. And the receiving enemy. What stupidity it'd be. Every bit of me's the epitome of the spitter when I'm in the vicinity. Motherfucker, you better duck when you finna be dead the minute you run into me. 100% of you is a fifth of a percent of me. I'm about to fucking finish you, bitch. I'm available. You wanna battle? I'm available. I'm blowing up like an inflatable. I'm undebatable. I'm unavoidable. I'm unevadable. I'm on the toilet bowl. I got a trailer full of money and I'm painful. I'm not afraid to pull them. Man, stop. Look what I'm planning.
Depending on the user interface and depending on, it's time to talk about the components. With Nux 3 we got a feature called auto import, which basically means that every component are available everywhere in the application because it's auto imported. So if we look at the document interface, okay, they will be automatically available across your application without having to explicitly import them. So previously on Vue.js, what we were supposed to do is to, every time we need the component, to import it everywhere we need it. We can also go on the main.js file and say actually to the Vue application to use the component, and we can import it everywhere also. It's a kind of auto import. However, with Nuxt, we don't need to do all of this. And that's really amazing because we save a lot of time. We're going to create And here it and going to be right in black there. In my to go to direct next work like file. If I create here, I'm going to tap the view the file next in component folder. In the all you component folder, I'm going to in the file if file. This is going in file header is the page text. Any I didn't understand my supposed app class current going to be, and now can I enter component add component to confuse and type the whole file in those levels. It importing to when you have a name, because this is to edition we want to use what we call layouts, and of course Next.js help us to deal with layouts. So right now I got my main page, and if I get back, I just got this page here index.view that is created and it's totally empty. And let's say that I want to create first a default layout for this page. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to create a layouts folder. Inside this layout I'm going to create by default default.view. Default.view is going to be the layout by default. And we will see later that in our page we will be able to declare what layout we want to use depending on this div is going to be class, and I'm going to call that default layout this way, okay, just for the example. Then what I'm going to write is just a p, and I'm going to type default layout, so we will see that we are in the default layout. What I need to do now is to specify that here I want to put the data, I want to put the pages, I want to just display the component slot. Slot here we receive actually our page, which is index.dev. So once I have done this, let's get back to my app, let's refresh, and there we go. We see that without writing anything on my index.dev, view, I get this default layout. That is displayed, and if I open my and we see that the page created of text white bg slate 900 and H string for this one. We will see that my style will be applied on the whole layout, so on all the children down there. So to create a layout you use a slot. Alright, now let's try to create another layout which will be a custom one. So here in layout I type custom.view, and actually what I can do is just copy pasting this custom layout, and instead I'm going to call it custom. So now I've got this. I want to create another page, because default is for all the pages that are not asking for any other layout. But now I'm going to create another page, and let's say that this one will be, for instance, custom.view, exactly the same name as the layout, but you're not obliged, it could be events or whatever. I'm just going to grab this one, it's going to be custom page, and here I'm going to type custom page. Alright, the thing is now if I go on /custom, so with my router you know that it generated the route. If I go on /custom, what is going to happen? Well, on the custom page I got my default layout, and this is normal because I didn't specify any layout to use. When you want to specify a layout to use, in your script here you are going to say that you want to use this layout on this custom page. Alright? So what you need to use as a page meta is a function available everywhere in your Next application that you can call to specify some parameters because it's an object that is taken as a parameter. And here I'm going to use layout, and in there I'm going to use the name of the layout that I'm going to use. So you understood now that I want to use custom. Okay, I specified here on the custom.view page that I want to use the custom layout. Now, close all of this and just open here my custom.view. Now let's get back to the page and let's see if we get our custom layout. So when I
I'm a fool for pain. I'm a dummy, might cut my head off right after I slit my throat. Tongue kiss a shark, got jealous bitches up in the boat, eating peanut butter and jellyfishes on toast. And if I get stung, I get stoked. Might choke like I chewed a chunk of charcoal. Naked in the North Pole, why my heart cold, full of sorrow. The lost soul, and only Lord knows when I'm coming to the crossroads.
let's get back to the page and let's see if we get our custom layout. So when I get back, I got finally my custom layout. So back in the layout, I'm going to change just the color. Let's say a background blue. There we go. Use this layouts folder, and we can create new layout inside this folder. And after page, you add and to put our main.scss. But me, I added 2 images there to show you how we can use assets to fetch our images. But first, let's have a quick look on the documentation and let's have an explanation on difference between public and assets. The public directory content is served at the server root as is. The assets directory contains by convention every assets that you want the build tool, Vite or Webpack, to process. So what is the difference between public and assets? That's the main question here. Why do we got 2 different folders? And that's maybe why you are watching this video, because it's a bit confusing to have 2 different folders that we could use actually to store our images, font, or etc, etc. Let's start by explaining the assets directory. Let's have a look on the documentation. Nuxt uses Vite or Webpack to build and bundle your application. This is the tool that basically bundle your. The main function of these build tools is to process JavaScript files, but they can be extended through plugin for Vite or loaders for Webpack to process original file, mainly for is processing at the bundle actually. So file files and also to store this file, and you can use any other name for it, which means that Nuxt is not watching at assets, it's just a static repository there that is here just for the dev, and there is no auto scan functionality, so it means that Nuxt is not watching to it. So you can name it the name you want. Here basically it's assets. Let's take an example. Here I got my app running, and in assets I added 2 images. So what I can do is to go on my main page, which is index, alright, and here in index what I could do is to import this image. So I can take this example down there and I'm going to add it just after my hello Nuxt, which we can actually put there, hello Nuxt free. There we go. And I'm going to catch my image called 1.jpg. I'm going to my app. Way of displaying an image, let's try to display it there. Instead of, so I'm going to previously. This was the whole way to resolve paths, because now we can use root dir and source dir with Nuxt. So I can remove this one and I could put, for instance, asset, use root dir, can close it directly instead of having will play in the assets. The second way of using the path, and of course we see that if I do that, Node.js is not serving this folder. Remember, it says down there that Nuxt doesn't auto scan and doesn't take in order this folder into his build. Alright, so basically, because it's processing actually. Basically, if we want to have a public image with no process at all, because assets is processing, but public here is not processing, we can use the public folder. So here the public directory is used as a public server assets. So you're gonna put no compression, there will be no processing, nothing else, no resizing, it will stay as it is. The same for style sheet, the same for any other file that you would put in there. By the root, into I got a server. Into my image will be, if I want to access this image, basically, what I can do is to directly use the slash. So here, instead of having all of this, I can just put the slash and here the two. So I'm going to get back on the app, and there we go. Slash will look directly into the public folder, which is very useful if you want to fetch another file like this. You can use directly the public folder. Available files up to the assets, and you would have to use a plugin for Vite to load them. And there is one called Vite SVG Loader that helps you actually to import the SVG from, for instance, the public or assets folder, and to render them directly like a component. The thing that you would need to do is to go on your vidconfig.js, and if you don't have it, you have to create it, and then you give the plugin a view or SVG loader. Alright, so you can use a third-party plugin for Nuxt to load your SVG. However, you know that I like to give you the best tips to develop faster and efficiently in Vue.js, and if you want to, and especially Nuxt, and if you want to use SVG, my advice would be to go on icon.js.org. And the thing is that everything is a component in Vue.js. So basically catch an icon. So here if I type basically, let's say that I'm going to take this one, you see that on this website, on icon.js.org,
Охуеть.
I can download SVG as components. And here we see that I got plenty other options. I can also do it in React. I can download them directly. What I can do if I click here on component view, I can just come back, go on my component, and here I'm going to create a folder called icons. And in icons, I'm going to create a bell.view. And I'm going to copy paste, and directly I got my SVG that is appearing here. So let's say that now I want to catch, so I'm going to remove this image. I want to use my SVG icon, which is in my .view file. I can simply call icons bell. And here icons bell is going to call in the component folder icons and bell. Now it's done, let's get back to our application, and there we go. With want to use icons, go on icon.js.org. React application or Next.js application. You might know what are hooks. Well, basically, it's exactly the same as composer mode. However, with the Vue Composition API introduced by Vue 3, the idea is to split the code logic into several files instead of having the same logic everywhere mixed. Why we do that? Because it makes the code lighter, but also because it helps us to debug faster and to have some code cleaner. So we create some code logic. So let's have an example, because we need something concrete. Here I got two views. I got index.view and I got profile.view. And let's say that in index.view I would have a function called say hello. Trigger this function open and the say. Well, it's a bit dumb. And here the thing is that it names so it's two declaration in two places, and that could be a problem. So log good thing. So here I'm going to create a new folder, and this folder is going to be called composables. And now you understood next three. Auto import is the main feature. Of course, next 3 will auto import all our composables. So the convention says that with view 3 we should name the composables with a use before. So let's say that here we are going to call that useutils.ts. Here what we're going to do, we are going to create a const, okay, or useutils that we are going to export, and this will be a function. Okay, so let's get back at our say hello. Let's say that in our function we would have this say hello there, and now what we want to do, we want to return say hello. Now I got this file called useutils that I could use everywhere in my app because I have the auto import feature made by Nux3. So instead of having this declaration there, what I can do is just destructure, okay, my useutils. And useutils come from where? It comes from this file composable. So Nux3 understand that every file that is there as a function, and is going to record this function. And here the function that we have is of course useutils. So I got useutils, and what I need to import is say hello. And now I got my say hello there that I can trigger. Of course I can do exactly the same there, and now I don't get the problem that that I have two different declarations. So here I can put hello from useutils. Composable, okay, with view 3, etc, etc. Composable. This isn't a very useful library that a lot of Vue and Nux developers are using. This library is called VueUse. VueUse has been created by Anthony Fu. He is really known in the Vue. This VueUse, you get the time if you would need to detect if you click outside, you would go into your composable and outside. Okay, is that if you install VueUse, you don't need to do that. All you would need to do is to import click outside coming from the VueUse library. So as you, if you, and at the same worked on downtime. So here you got a for this library. Let me give you an example. Let's say that before you launch your application, you want to trigger some JavaScript. Well, actually, it's not really before you launch it, but it's at a certain time that you want to trigger some function. What you can do is to use plugins. Also, let's say that you would like to have a directive or some kind of function available everywhere in your app, and you don't want to use a composable to put this function and import it. You just would like to click. You would just like to have a Nux app.something to trigger your function. Well, what you are looking for are plugins. On the official documentation, we can read that Nux automatically needs the files in your plugin directory and loads them at the creation of the Vue application. So basically, what you need to do is to create, again, and it's always the same logic actually, and this is why I love Nux, I can create my plugins folder. And inside I will create a myplugin.ts. So let's create this first plugin, myplugin.ts, and then the main difference is that those plugins can be called at the initiation of your Nux application. So I got my plugin.ts, and if I go down, I see that I need to type export default define next plugin. Let's go, let's type export default define next plugin. And here, as an argument, I can type the next app, because here at the beginning, I will have my context available. So let's console log this next app that we already saw before, and there we go. Now I did this, I can go back to my app and try to trigger again, and look at that. What I have is that before my composable function that says hello from useUtil, I have my Nuxt app context available. However, in Nuxt, if we are using plugin, it's because most of the time we would like to have some directive or to have some function that we could trigger everywhere, like I said at the beginning of this course. In order to do that, we have an amazing example there, really simple to understand. It's that we create our plugin and we return an object, and inside this object we got a provide key, and this provide key will tell actually to Nuxt, hey, record this as a function or directive list, because it's an object that will be available in everywhere in my app. So let's create our own directive, and here is going to be exactly a bit like this example, I guess. So I'm going to get back there, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to return an object, and in this object I'm going to return provide, and provide here will wait for something. Say hello, okay? Say hello. I got say hello, which actually will take a message, which would be a type string, and it will console log, okay, my message. So I got hello message. There we go. Now I've got this. Okay, now I've got this, I can go to my index.view and I can call my hello function. So how I can do it? Well, it's really easy to understand. We see down there that I can import hello from Nuxt app. And I'm going to import my hello function, which is here. But actually it's not hello, it's say hello. So say hello actually will be available. And if you look at the object, what I got now is a $say hello. So what we're gonna do first is to console log this use Nuxt app, which will return to me the content. And if I click and I look down, I got down there, I got this say hello function. So now everywhere in my app, I got this say hello function that is available. What I can do now is to use this function say hello simply by typing $say hello, and here I'm going to put given, for instance. And when I get back and I update, there we go, it's working. Often plugins are used to inject into the Nuxt context all the logic of a certain library. Let me give you an example for Firebase. If you would like to have Firebase installed on your Nuxt application, you would use a plugin. Even if there is a module for Firebase that maybe we are going to see later. As I said to you, here we got a very good example on the Nuxt documentation. We can use plugins for third library. And here we got the module view gtag actually to add Google Analytics tags to your Nuxt application. A last example is to change the view directive, and here we got another example. Here we are going to create a plugin, and we see that we inject again into our view app inside the Nuxt app the directive focus, and in this directive focus we are specifying behavior. So this is something else that you can do inside your plugin folder. You could change your directive directly there and say from the start of the app, hey, I want to change a behavior and this is what I want to do. So in plugins you can have custom plugins that you create for yourself and that create some triggers. You have plugins that are related to modules, and you have plugins that are related also to directives. Actually, you can create the plugin you want, and that's the force of Nuxt.js. One of the main reasons I moved from view free to Nux free, it's because of the routing system, but also because of middlewares. Because with Nux free, what we can use is middlewares, those files that will trigger some operation before we switch from root to another one. So you understood now that we can deal with authentication with middleware, and I can say that with Nux free, it's so useful. Let's have a quick look on the documentation. Nuxt provides a customizable root middleware framework you can use throughout your application. Ideal for extracting code that you want to run before navigating to a particular route. That's amazing. I don't know if you realize, but that's amazing because we can deal with several cases we want to deal with thanks to authentication. There are three kinds of root middleware: anonymous or inline root middleware, which are defined directly in the page where they are used. So I get back to my app and I'm going to create a folder called middleware. And I'm going to create a new file, and let's say that this file is going to be called auth.ts. In this auth.ts, I'm going to export default a method called define nuxt, and here be safe because what we want to have is define root middleware. So this method provided by Nuxt helps us to catch several parameters. To and from are from them. So here I'm going to use to, from. Now what I'm going to do is to console log this to and this from. Alright, so now I got my middleware, and you probably understood that there's a mistake because I want this middleware to be triggered everywhere. So if I get back to my app and I update, I don't get anything that is console log. And here on the line 2 and 3 of my auth.ts, I'm supposed to have defined a Nux root middleware. So on every root, it's supposed to execute all the code there. It's because here, the global root middleware is supposed to have a global suffix. So what I'm gonna do is to rename and put here auth.global.ts. Now I get back to the app, I update, and there we go. We see that now on this route I have my two elements that are triggered. The first is 2. And from, this is the route I'm going from. So I'm going to put slash, and I think I already got a route profile there. And as you see, and I got data from where I come and where I go. So it's really useful to use this global actually middleware that can help us to trigger some operation. Let's take an example, and let's say that we want to check on every route of our application if we are logged in on it. And we would check that with a variable, okay, is logged in, okay, which will be on. Well, the thing is that later we will have a store, and in this store we will have some kind of variable like this. So we will be able to check the store first to see if we are logged in or not, and then we could take some decision. But there, what we need to do is to check with if we are logged in or not. Otherwise, if we would not be logged in, we would redirect. We would redirect to a login page. And there, what we want to do, we want to redirect actually to the page we want to go. And this page, we have it because we have two. Two, it's the destination. Two is the destination. So what I can do is console log my two. All right. So when I get back there, I update, and actually I'm going to go exactly there. Okay. I see that where I want to go is to the full pass. So what I can do is to use a method that is written there called navigate to. Navigate to, and not from, to dot full pass. If we are logging, we say, okay, you can go to the destination you want to go. Otherwise, if you don't want to, you have to navigate to, and the page here could be login. So this is a quick example on how we could create an authentication system on every. Route. But what happens if I remove this global? Here we already saw that when I remove this global, and I'm going to remove this example, I'm going to say just console log hello from middleware. Voilà. There we go. We saw that nothing is happening there. So when I update, nothing. Is happening on my index page. What you can do also, you can specify to your page that you want to use this middleware auth. So here in my page that I want to add a middleware to, I can type define page meta, and in this function that we already saw to define the layout, but we can also use to many other. Things like title, etc., etc. We can say, hey, I want to use a middleware, and this middleware is going to be off. Let's check that, and when we get back, we see that hello from middleware off. If I go on profile, I don't get. this hello from the middleware. And what I would need to do is to do exactly the same thing on profile.view. There is also a method that you could use. For instance, inside a plugin, and this method is simply add root middleware. Well, basically what we could do is to say to our plugin to add a root middleware, and we define this by the name of the plugin, then by the function and everything that you want to trigger inside of it. And you can specify at the end if you want it to be global or not. That's another way of adding a middleware, which is very convenient with Nux 3. It's that you can set up authentication really fast depending on your middleware. That's an amazing feature.
Блять, еще.
With Nux 3 we can use what we call modules. And actually we had already this in the Nux 2. Modules are like libraries. You have to install them and add them to your nux.config.js. Also, modules are made to simplify your integration and simplify your developer experience. These Nux modules are actually running asynchronous when your Nux application is launched. And these modules can be created by anyone. They can be published on NPM in order to help other developers to save time, to help you to develop faster. We've got Tailwind, for instance, and if we click on Tailwind, because we already installed Tailwind on our Nux.js application, add a prefix called @nuxjs/tailwindcs is made only for Nux.js. And with the @nuxjs, we understand that we call actually the Tailwind version for Next.js. But what is the main difference with a current library? Well, if we get back, we see that here we have a definition called a supercharge. So a module is here to supercharge your Nux project. So we understand that this is a plus that goes directly inside the real life cycle of Nux. So let's get down and let's install, for instance, a package, a module called Nux content. So how do we install Nux content? Well, and how do we install Nux module most of the time? Well, which is cool is that we have often a documentation that comes with the modules that have been created by the developer. And that is really useful because when you click on it, we arrive on a new website, on a new documentation that explains to us how to use this specific package. There I'm going to click on Get Started for Nux content, and we see that I don't got a new project. I want to add my new project. So what I would need to do is to add this, actually this module, by stopping my server and just typing yarn add --dev @nuxt/content. I'm going to type enter, and after the installation I am able to see that in my list I got Nux content as a dev dependency. So it's not finished, because with Nux what we need to do when we want to use modules that are entering inside my Nux cycle, actually my Nux context, I need to specify to my Nux application to use this module. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get back and go on nux.config.ts, and here I'm going to type modules, which is an array. This array is waiting for different modules, and we see here that type9 proposed me already Axios as a package or proxy, but me, I'm going to use Nux content. And when I get back, I'm going to type enter there we go, and now I got Nux content. So I'm going to type yarn dev, and actually you will see that here for this specific package nothing will have changed. However, if I want to use Nux content, we see that I have to create a content folder, so I'm going to type content, and inside I'm going to create an index.md because Nux content is a package to render markdown files. And now with Nux content, Nux understands that he has to look at content. So I'm going to type hello world. And if I want to render this content, I have to use a built-in component called content doc. So I'm going to close this, I'm going to get back. And now this built-in component, content doc, is available because I installed this module and I specify in nux.config.ts to use it. So I'm going to go on my main page, and inside, instead of adding this hello, I'm going to put content doc. And when I get back, I got my content. So as you see, there are many modules that you can use, for instance, E18N, which is actually for internationalization, and it's always working the same. What you need to do is to install the corresponding package and then to add it to your module array. And you will look for a library to use in Nux. Well, before doing, maybe there's already to go faster in your developer experience. We often need a state management system. What is this exactly? Well, when you have a view, we need to have some variables between component system, and of course with view free linear. User state, compare state, turn inside, user state. It's for us highly. Here we have a basic usage that I'm going just to copy paste. So I got my app there. I'm going to remove all of this and use the official.
Чего?
Calmly feel myself evolving, appalling, so much I'm not divulging. Been stalling, I think I hear applauding. They're calling, mixed things aren't my thing, but it's been awfully exhausting. Hanging on to songs as long as daunting, which caused me to have to make a call I thought was ballsy, resulting in what you see today. Proceed indulging, as always. The one-trick pony's here, so quit your
Actually the official example. So when I get back, there we go, counter, and my counter is up there and is using a user state counter, which is returning actually a value. Alright, that kind of store or state inside our app. So here it is working, alright, but here we see that we have shared state, and this might be what you are looking for. Go to our composables and let's create a new file called states.ts. By the way, in the previous course of composables, I told you that the convention is to use as a prefix for your composables. It seems that here in this example, it's not respecting the convention. Here I see export const there. I'm going to copy this, alright, and there we go. So now I got this state.ts through composables that is injected inside my own application, and so I got two values available, use counter and use color. And the thing is that here we would like it to work. You did Nux 2 before, you knew that a folder store would be already written by default, and in this store, every store that you would create would follow the path of view X. So basically you would have application. Basically there's a state, Nux 3, we see that this use state can work exactly like a store and can return actually just an object or a value that could will be being counter there. I'm going to call use counter, which
that's over the top. Not there in the headlight looks every time I step my foot on the ground. I get mistook for a lame with no weight to his name. Ground just shook, let's not beat around the bush. Even my side storm off like how he do it. Some say I'm a great influence, I don't know about that, but
Which actually comes from my state. Here I got my discount. And what I want to do, I want to create a component. Say that you're gonna have a counter component, counter.view, that would have exactly the same code as in mine. Now I've got this, I can create a new div, and next to it I'm going to call my counter. So I will have a double counter. Here what I can do is to put an ID, and let's put the ID name, and here I'm going to put this 2, this 1, this 2. So let's click, and we see that actually my state is changing in the two components. Here we got what we call a shared state. We can define global type safe states and import them across the app. So the main question would be why we will use a state.ts that will be actually a composable instead of using vuex or pinia. That's the question I asked myself also. And I found this very good article on viewmastery.com, which is a reference for Vue, written by Michael Thyssen. And this article is called Nux-free State Management, Pinia versus Use State. And here Michael is asking the same question as me. Do I use Nux-free own state management solution Use State, or should I use Nux-free with Pinia? Which is better? Well, here is the short answer provided by Michael Thyssen. Pinia is what you get if you keep adding more and more features to Use State. More complex apps will benefit from the extra features in Pinia, but Use State is better for small and simple apps. This is the short answer, and I think everything is said there. If you have a big application and once your Use State is heavier, you should use a state manager like Pinia. Otherwise, if you have a small application, you better use State. And if you want to know more about why we use State instead of ref, what is state hydration, and what are all the problems around it, and why to use either Use State or ref, I recommend you to read this article. Otherwise, we will have to install Pinia as a state manager. Because yes, even if I showed you this state management system by Nux-free, I also want to show you a bit of Pinia, because yes, for me, I can't make a course about Nux-free without talking about Pinia, which is an amazing state manager. So let's have a look. Let's install Pinia, and so I'm going to stop my server, and I'm going to type yarn add Pinia add. Pinia next. So you want understood now that this Pinia Next is a module that I'm going to add, and if you want to look at it, you can go on the module page of Nux-free to find it, or otherwise you go on pinia.vue.js.org and you look for Nux.js. So I'm going to get back to my nux.config.js and I'm going to add Pinia Next. There we go. Now what I got JS, and I'm going to add I can use the store outside of setup. So I'm going to type yarn dev again, and I'm going to create a new folder at the root of my application, and this new folder will be stores. Actually, in this folder, what I'm going to put is actually, my store. They call it my store. As an example, my store.js. So now I need to create my store. So when I get back, I got an example there. I got several examples actually. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy paste this use counter store. There we go. So how does a store is working? As I said to you, with Pinia we got state, getters and actions only. Alright? So now with the state we are returning some value, and we got getters that are actually an action write our store with the view free way. So here, as you see, we've got ref, we've got computed, we've got increment. So when I get back there, I have the old way of doing it. Now I'm going to copy paste, and we are going to look quickly at the difference. Down there we have the view free composition API that has been used, and up there we have the
Да ну нахуй.
view 2, which is actually used with the option API. State are replaced by reference, and getters are replaced by computed properties. I decided to keep it on the view freeway, so with the composition API. I got my store. I'm going to import my store, which is use counter store. I'm going to create a variable called store, which we call actually the counter store, and I want to console log it. When I get back to my app, we see that I have the proxy that represents actually my store. And if you are using Vue DevTools, which is actually a next step,
I'm a star, I'm serious. We came to play serious. Came with the gang of myriad. Came with the gang of myriad. Came with the mod crew. My money big body, my money talking. No, I don't need you, I really don't want you. My money been twerking, my money do dancers. Yeah, shut up. I already heard you, I don't wanna answer. You ruin everything, touch you a cancer. I'm on that side where we win. No, you're not that guy, cause I'm him. Yeah,
mention for
Ой, блядь. О.
Chrome, you can see that there
Чё?
we've got access to our Piña stores, and we've got our counter just in here. We see that there are several ways of dealing with the state management inside Nuxt 3. You can have the user state through composables to help. It's this server directory that can help us to create actually a backend and to deliver some functionalities that are related actually to API. Cans and server. We can add the subject into an API instance. Or if yes, running it's after. It's there. And see what see that can all of and ever get back API and here API. Okay. Well, for instance, that not your prompt or read to Node.js or at least report. However, but it get back to like develop away from that big put of API import and get data return get back with slash your method. It is to and you create app.js. So look at the term